Yo, what's happening, movie lovers all over the world? This is your boy Testify to the Music, also known as Mikey Savage 21. And today I'm going to be bringing you my non spoilers review for the movie Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice. And before I start, I just want to say that I did thoroughly enjoy the movie. I did like it, and I really enjoyed the concepts that they tried to introduce into this movie. With that being said, I didn't like everything. So what I did is I made a list of what I liked about the movie, a list of what I disliked, and then a few honorable mentions of scenes that I think that could have been taken out that were really pretty much pointless to the movie. Again, this will be non-spoilers. I'll have my spoilers review posted sometime this week, along with a special guest commentator on there as well, as we'll both give our thoughts in depth about what we overall thought of Batman v Superman. But with that being said, let's go ahead and jump straight into this review. So diving first into the first thing about what I liked about Batman v Superman would of course have to be Ben Affleck as Batman slash Bruce Wayne. I gotta say, this was perfect casting for this. And I know when he first got announced years ago, people were complaining, saying, oh no, he's not the guy, we don't want him being Batman. Well, all you guys can go suck it, because Ben Affleck was one of the best parts of this movie. His portrayal of Bruce Wayne slash Batman was straight out of Frank Miller's comic book run, straight out of The Dark Knight. His concept, he just brought this Frank Miller character to life. Again, this is a Batman who is like war tattered, who's like seen a lot of action, who's at least I want to say at least maybe about 10 to 20 years as being Batman. And I had a friend of mine, he asked me about which Batman did I prefer. Do I prefer Christopher Nolan's Batman, or do I prefer Ben Affleck's portrayal of Batman? And I would have to say that both of them are up to par. Because again, Christopher Nolan's Batman, you have more so what he's doing is they're introducing you to this Batman, and you go along with him through his journey. Then you have The Dark Knight, where he essentially comes in and he's going against his greatest adversary, the Joker, and he's really pushed to the limit. Then you have The Dark Knight Rises, where he comes in and he's going against Bane, who is like one of the most powerful OP guys he has ever faced. And it's literally just breaking all of Batman's bones, just breaking him in half, and then he has to overcome that. And then you have this new Batman, which Ben Affleck is playing, where essentially he's playing like this war-tattered guy who has seen a lot of action. He's seen the death of Jason Todd, and no, that's not a spoiler, that's actually in the trailer, and that scene is actually in the movie, where he looks at the suit, and it says, "Ha ha, joke's on you." This is implying that this is a Batman after the loss of Jason Todd. So his portrayal of Batman, I got to say, was one of the best parts of this movie. Moving right along on other things that I liked about this movie, another surprise character that everybody was hating on, that everybody was wondering about this casting choice. Was it poor casting choice? I'll have to say Gal Gadot as Princess Diana, aka Wonder Woman, was great. Now, she's only had about 16 lines in this movie. She had about 16 lines in this movie, and that's pretty much it. But her action scenes, though, more than enough make up for the lack of dialogue that she had in this movie. And even the 16 lines of dialogue that she had were great. She delivered it very well. You couldn't tell about an Israeli accent. I know everybody was worried about that. She did a phenomenal job as Princess Diana. I have to say again, she's also one of the best parts in this movie as well. I liked her take on Princess Diana, and I'm definitely looking forward to the Wonder Woman movie next year. Moving right along, another character that I like that everybody's not surprised by is Jeremy Irons as Alfred. Now, again, this Alfred, again, is like Batman. He has seen all the grittiness. He's seen all the action. He's war-tattered as well. What I really like about Jeremy Irons' portrayal of Alfred is how he's able to trade quips back and forth with Batman. how he's just being the voice of reason and how he's just talking to him and just trying to tell him, look, if you're going to bring war to this alien, then you need to be prepared. Are you sure that you want to do this? Are you sure that you want to go down this path? Essentially, he's like his voice of reason. But another thing that I liked in here, and again, this is also in the trailer, so it's not spoiling anything. I like how this Alfred goes with him. He's not necessarily, he's with him right there on the camcorder. He's right there like flying the ship and everything. He's doing all these things and he's just autopiloting while Batman is doing what he has to do. I like this Alfred and I like how he's more involved than previous Alfreds that we had in the past. Usually Alfred is just the guy who's just his butler, but he also acts as a mentor / father role to Bruce Wayne as well. This Alfred, is just as war-tattered and driven as this Batman is. And I can say if he would have had some fight scenes in here, that probably would have elevated his character even more. But I absolutely love Jeremy Irons as Alfred. This was great casting choice. Again, another thing that I did like, I like how they got everyone back from Man of Steel. A lot of times when you try to make these continuous sequels or continuous things, you have to replace characters and you have to take people out. I love how they had everybody come back from Man of Steel. Even Michael Shannon as playing General Zod. He's dead, but he's still there. His presence is still felt throughout the film. I love how they were able to get everybody back for this. That's one of the things that I was worried when this movie was coming out. I was like, how are they going to be able to get all the characters back from Man of Steel? We don't want to see new characters get written out like all of a sudden. Even like the secondary and third tier characters, they were still in here. I really enjoyed that. And the last thing, well, I take that back. There are two more things. Another thing that I like was the overall fight between Batman and Superman. Now, this was a great, great fight. And I'm not going to go into too many details because I don't want to spoil it. I'll just go based on what you saw from the trailer. Everything that you saw in the trailer, yes, that is in this movie. It is packed full of action. You have a Batman going toe-to-toe with Superman. They're trading blows left and right. And yes, in this movie, there is a clear-cut winner of who won the fight. Again, I won't say who that is because I don't want to spoil the movie experience for you. But there is a clear-cut winner in this. And the winner is clearly shown, and he comes out on top. Again, this fight, it was well worth sitting into this movie. I will say the fight, it was about 15 minutes, maybe about 15 minutes worth of a fight. But again, in that 15 minutes, your time just seems to just be ticking. It just seems to be flying. You can barely just contain yourself during the fight. I know for me, I felt like I wanted to get up and just start like randomly punching in the air. That's how action-packed the fight was. It made me want to get involved, and it definitely made the audience members around me want to get involved as well because everybody was on the edge of their seat to see who was going to win this powerful battle. And the last thing I have to say that I liked about this movie is Doomsday's appearance. I know a lot of people tripped out when they showed Doomsday's appearance. They're like, "Oh, you're ruining the movie. It's supposed to be." Well, and they recovered with that third trailer, focusing more on the Batman versus Superman aspect as opposed to Doomsday. But I liked his appearance. But there's some things that I didn't like about his appearance, and I'll get into those later on about when I talk about what I disliked about it. But I liked Doomsday's appearance. I liked how he looked. It was just a great fight between Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman going toe-to-toe with Doomsday. It was just a great, phenomenal field. I can't just express enough how much action was packed into that fight sequence. The CGI was a little spotty in certain parts, but again, that's not really something that you can help. I mean, again, if you look at years and years ago when we didn't have the CGI technology that we do today, it looked like somebody would be fighting like on strings and stuff. So I have to say, even though the CGI was a little spotty here and there with Doomsday, it still looked overall great. As people always say, good things must come to an end. That is the end of my list of what I liked. Now I'm going to talk about the many things that I disliked. Now here I only have listed out 5 because again, More of the things that I disliked, I'll go more in depth with those when I give my spoilers review. But the first thing I have to say, the first thing that I disliked about this movie was Jesse Eisenberg. I believe this was poor casting, and I'm not sure if this is the writer's fault or if this is just Eisenberg's portrayal. But his portrayal of Lex Luthor dropped the ball. Essentially, his character, if anything, was acting like Jim Carrey's The Riddler. That's exactly how he was acting, with the ping, 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 and just being all ooh, 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 and all goofy and everything. That's essentially how he was like the entire film. You had moments of darkness within him, but it was just overall just craziness. I said, wait a minute. Is he playing the Riddler or is he playing the Joker? Wait a minute. The Riddler and the Joker aren't supposed to be in this movie. He's supposed to be playing Lex Luthor. I don't know what that is. Again, and I don't know if that's Eisenberg's fault or if that's the writer's fault, if that's just how they told him to act, or that's again, it's just crazy. Again, poor casting, poor writing. They definitely should have just went with a different tone for Lex Luthor, because again, I know this was a dark and dreary movie, and maybe they're like, okay, well, we need a character in there who's flamboyant. We need him to, do quirky little things to try to pep people up in the audience, because we don't want him to sad and depressed this entire time. Look, the story itself is sad and depressing. You're going off of Frank Miller's run for the Batman. So, of course, it's going to be dark and dreary, because the comic book was dark and dreary. And again, I know they were probably trying to do the Marvel thing where, like in Captain America Winter Soldier, as much of as it was a political film and how dark and the tones were, they still had like little fun quips and moments in there with Captain America and Black Widow. And they had, good dialogue and stuff in there. And it was real flamboyant. And again, you could just tell that while this movie was dark, they still had a certain sense of fun in it. And maybe that's what they were trying to go for here. But again, I think that they dropped the ball with Jesse Eisenberg's portrayal of Lex Luthor. But again, I'll get more into that when I get into my spoilers review later on this week. Second thing that I didn't like the introduction to the other Justice League members. Now again, the second half of this film, again, it's called Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. This is supposed to be the prelude or prequel leading up to Justice League Part 1 and Part 2. And so, that, of course, you have to introduce the characters in here. I got to say, the way they went about introducing the characters in here, excluding, of course, Batman, because they did a phenomenal job with that. They could have did a little better job on Wonder Woman, but since she has her own standalone movie coming out, maybe they'll probably, wanted to save that for the movie and everything. They didn't want to give too much away. So I'll give them a pass on that. But them introducing Cyborg and Aquaman and the Flash, and again, these are not spoilers because these guys were, on cast to be in here. But just in case, I'll make sure I put something up on the screen to let you guys know that was possibly a spoiler. But the way they introduced the other Justice League members, I did not like it. I felt like it was just shoehorned in here. Again, I know the film, it's called Batman vs. Superman, so I'm glad that they focused on the Batman vs. Superman part, but the other half of the film is called Dawn of Justice. You have to introduce the characters in a way that people will know who they are. I saw people in the audience with me looking around and asking questions, saying, who is that? What is this character? I don't understand. Now, of course, because of the Flash TV series, everybody knows who the Flash is. So when he appeared onto the screen, everybody knew who the Flash was. But as far as Aquaman and Cyborg goes, you have guys who are like, wait a minute, who is that guy and what's going on and all this weird stuff. And then you have, like, again, Aquaman. Most people know who Aquaman is as well. But I just know that there were a lot of audience members scratching their head about that. Yeah, about that whole introduction. They were a little confused. But okay, guys, that was just a little bit of a spoiler, but I made sure I had the proper warnings up to let you know ahead of time that about the little minor spoilers that were in there. Again, I didn't go into details about the clips that they showed us introducing the Justice League members, but again, I just had to point that out to get my point across. Number 3, and this is one of the biggest things of this. This is even more so bigger than Jesse Eisenberg's character or the introduction, to the Justice League and how poor it was. I have to say, the sloppy editing of the film. The scenes were too choppy. The scenes didn't seem to flow well together. It just felt like it was really chopped up. And I know there's a rated R version coming out, and they had to take certain scenes out, and it'll probably look a lot better in the rated R version. But I just know I could definitely tell. And this was me going in with low expectations. I wasn't expecting to be like wowed by this movie. But I could clearly tell that there was some poor editing choices going on here. The scenes didn't really flow together. There were random scenes thrown everywhere. It was just weird. And if anybody could tell, because again, a lot of people in the audience, when they were coming out, they were like, what was up with all the editing? And, you know, it felt weird in certain spots, and it felt really slow. And then, like I said, the scenes did not mesh well together. And again, I can't go in great detail about that, but I will later on in my other review that I have posted coming this week. But the scenes just seem way too choppy. If I was Zack Snyder, I would have done a little bit better job of picking and choosing what scenes that I would have taken out. And then again, at the end of this video, I'll tell you 2 scenes that I think should have been taken out, but they were both in the trailer, so it won't be any form of spoilers. But moving on. The next thing I didn't like, how Doomsday was created. Now, they showed us also in the trailer how Doomsday was created. They show us that they used the little machine from Man of Steel to create Doomsday. That was in the trailer, so that's no big spoilers or anything. But I'll make sure, again, I have proper labels just in case you guys think this is a spoiler. But for you who want to know about it, again, it's a minor spoiler. How Doomsday created, how Lex Luthor went about getting his body and creating him and everything, it just didn't add up. They didn't do enough explaining about how he becomes Doomsday and how Zod becomes Doomsday. They didn't do any explaining on that. It was just really confusing. Again, I was going into this, I know how Doomsday is created. I know, how his backstory and how he further progresses, as the more you take him on. I know about all of that. And I know about the Doomsday thing that's embedded in every Superman or every Kryptonian. I know all about that. But viewing this as a person who could be a casual movie fan, of comic book movies and don't read any form of comics just to rely solely on the movies, you're going to be lost because they did not do a good enough job explaining how in the world Doomsday was created. But again, I'm going to move off of that. Getting right back into it. Again, the last thing that I didn't like was the ending. Zack Snyder, I'll say this, his endings are very controversial. Of course, infamously, the ending of Man of Steel, where he snaps Zod's neck. If you haven't seen Man of Steel by now, then yeah, you what are you doing? But that's not really a spoiler. But yeah, the way he snapped Zod's neck because he was about to kill a family, that was a very controversial ending. That ending didn't necessarily bother me because I look at it as like if he didn't stop him or find a way to subdue him in a proper way, he was just gonna kill everybody because he said it. If you do not stop me or do not kill me, I will kill everybody that you love and every single person on this planet. He said it right there, clear for it. So I didn't bother me when Superman snapped his neck. It did not bother me at all. But the ending here in this movie, once again, another controversial ending. I'm not going to go in detail about it at all, but I just know they build it up. They did all this build up to it. And then you see the end result of what's going on. And you see just how it just all comes together at the end and what the result of the fight between Doomsday, Wonder Woman, Superman, and Batman. You see the end result of that. And it just seemed like they shoehorned that ending in. It was just completely all over the place. Again, maybe in the rated R version, they'll do more explaining about the ending. But the ending for me just sucked because they give us all this buildup about what's going on, and then they just snatch it away from us just like that. But with that being said, guys, I'm just going to move on to the last segment of this video where I'm going to talk about scenes that I think that could have been changed or could have ultimately been taken out because they didn't help progress the story. Again, the 2 scenes that I'm going to be talking about here, they are also in the trailer. They're in all 3 trailers, so it's no spoilers here. The first thing that I want to talk about is Amy Adams' conversation with Henry Cavill in the bed, in the bathtub. I felt why that conversation that they had while she was in the bathtub naked had no purpose to it. And I can honestly say they were leaning very, very close to getting a rated R for more than just disturbing images and violence, more so for nudity, because if she would have came a few more inches up out of that bathtub, we would have been seeing a lot more than we should have been seeing as an audience member. But I felt that conversation that they had, it was a little bit of relevance to it, but I felt they could have had the conversation anywhere else. Again, and this is not me being, he's just a big Christian dude, he doesn't like nudity in movies does not bother me, as long as it is part of the story and it helps further progress the story and further progress the introduction of the characters and who they are. I'm fine with nudity. Like in Deadpool, the nudity that was throughout the movie did not bother me. I did feel a little uncomfortable in certain scenes, but that's only because I have seen certain things like that. But here, I just felt like they could have changed it. Maybe they could have had this somewhere else. Again, and Henry Cavill's dialogue here, again, this is just poor writing. It was, I don't know what to say about that dialogue. Oh, gosh. Amy Adams' dialogue here isn't that great either. Now them themselves did a phenomenal job. I'll take nothing away from Henry Cavill's portrayal of Superman. He did the best that he could with the dialogue that he was given. Same with Amy Adams playing Lois Lane. She did the best job that she could here. But their dialogue, again, was just horrible. But I felt that scene could have been taken out or it could have been changed. And the last scene that I want to talk about is all of Jesse Eisenberg's many conversations with the various characters throughout the movie. I felt like all of his scenes were utterly pointless. Utterly pointless, because they did nothing but just show us how quirky and goofy he is. And again, the scenes that were supposed to be menacing and, oh, wow, Lex Luthor, they didn't even make him seem that menacing. Essentially, again, they just made him the Riddler character. They essentially just made a knockoff, it seems like, of the Riddler character. I did not like the portrayal here. I did not like the conversations. I felt they did nothing to further the story. Maybe if the dialogue had been better, and maybe if Jesse Eisenberg had got better tips on how to play Lex Luthor, it would have been better. And this is not me knocking Jesse Eisenberg. He is a phenomenal actor. I love what he did in Now You See Me. I loved what he did in The Social Network. I even loved him in that movie he came out with last year with Kristen Stewart, that everybody hated on. I actually liked that movie. I thought it was a pretty fun movie. So he's not a bad actor. It's just, again, the writing here and maybe Zack Snyder's take on Lex Luthor wasn't the best. And I felt that it was weakening, one of the most weakening parts of the story, along again with some weak dialogue here and there from Henry Cavill and Amy Adams and a few other secondary and characters and third tier characters as well. That all can be worked around, but again, Jesse Eisenberg, all the conversations he had, I felt they did nothing to further the story. I think maybe one conversation he had with the senator was kind of a bit of important, but it really wasn't important. It could have been taken out. But with that being said, guys, I'm going to go ahead and give my overall score. If I had to give this a letter grade, I would give this maybe a C minus, probably a C minus. And I have had days to sit and think on this because I saw this Friday night, and that's why this review is going up so late, along with because I was having microphone troubles, but also because I wanted time to sit there and reflect on what I had saw. Now, I do plan to go see the movie again before I do my spoilers review, which I'll try to have posted sometime this week. I'm going to go see it again just to make sure that I didn't leave out anything, see what it is like on the second viewing. But I just know from my first viewing of it, I would have to give it a C minus. And if I have to give it a number score, I would possibly give it a 2.5, maybe a 3 out of 5 stars. Again, it's a good film, and I was entertained, but there again, and you'll see what I mean when we go in the spoilers review, there were just certain things in here that just made the movie just made it kind of awful, especially if you're a comic book fan or you're just a fan of the comics in general. And again, I know that they always talk about, you don't have to be faithful to the comics. And I'm glad that they're not always faithful to the comics. The Walking Dead is a fine example. They don't always stay faithful to the comics. They throw you for a loop. They do that with a lot of these films. And I'm glad that they do that because, again, I don't want the movie to be too predictable. And you'll feel like, oh, I've seen this in the comic book. They changed things up. But here, I just felt they tried to put too many comic book stories into one movie. They were trying to do too much. And again, this is nothing on Zack Snyder or the writers. They had a daunting task. They had to do essentially what J.J. Abrams did with The Force Awakens. They had to introduce new characters while also having old characters in there and help further the story along, leading up to ultimately something bigger, which is Justice League Part 1 and 2. So I know he had a daunting task on his shoulders. So again, I'm not going to knock him on his directing style or how he is. He is a great director. I've enjoyed most of his films that I have seen. The ones that I have not seen, that I actually read about and that I tried and attempted to watch, I didn't so much care for those. But this, again, nothing against Zack Snyder. But again, my letter grade would be a C-, and the number grade would be anywhere from a 2.5 to 3 out of 5 stars. With that being said, I'm going to go ahead and end this review. But ultimately, I want to know what you guys think about Batman vs. Superman, Dawn of Justice. What did you think about the movie? Did you see it this weekend? What were your things that you did and did not like? Again, guys, don't post again, guys, don't post any spoilers. If you have to post a spoiler, make sure you label it correctly. But again, try to keep the spoilers out of the comment section. But I want to know what you guys think. I want to know what you guys would give the film. Whether you would give it a C-, a B-, a A-. What would you guys give it? I want to know your scores. And also, I want to know how you felt coming out of the theater watching it. How did your audience in your theater feel about the movie? Did they like it? Did they not like it? What were people saying about it? And again, guys, these are just my thoughts and opinions in this review. Again, I'm just a chucklehead, as they say. You don't have to take what I say to heart. You might go out and enjoy this film and think I'm completely insane and think I'm being nitpicky about certain things. That's fine. Movies affect people in different ways, and that's one of the things I like about movies. Nobody ever has the same opinion. We all take movies in differently. But with that being said, thank you guys so much for checking out this review. If you like this video, make sure you hit the thumbs up button. Also, make sure you subscribe as well so we can get more movie reviews like this. Again, I'll make sure I have my spoilers review posted up sometime this week with a special guest commentator on there as well. Thank you for checking out this video. I hope you all have a blessed day, a blessed afternoon, and a blessed evening. I'm Testify to the Music, a.k.a. Mikey Savage 21, saying peace out.